Hey there, everyone. It's Mrs. Bailey, and today we're going to be reading Oscar's favorite red car. And right here, we see the word red is written in red. So before we start, let me ask you something. Who is the author of this book? Can you tell by looking at the cover? If you said it's this first person, even if you can't read it, you would be correct. It's G.D. Bailey. Now, who wrote the pictures? It's the second person, illustrated by J.B. Four. Whenever you see a book, the author is always going to be written first, and the illustrator will be the second person. Sometimes you may only see one name, and if you only see one name, that means they wrote and drew the pictures of the book. So as we're reading, every now and then, just like I do with most of my books, I will put down my cursor so you can find where we're at in case you've gotten lost. Even if you can't read all of the words, I really encourage you to follow along. You can pick out some of the words. Maybe if it's only the first letter in the sound, that's okay. You can pick out some of them. Just try to follow along. It will help you become a better reader. Okay, so I'm going to kind of yell right here because Oscar is yelling. So hold your ears. "Where's my favorite red car?" yelled Oscar. Ooh. "Stop yelling, Oscar. You are going to wake up Timmy," said Mom. Timmy was Oscar's baby brother. "I can't help it," whined Oscar. "It's my favorite red car and someone has taken it." "Are you sure?" asked Mom. "I can't imagine that someone would take your car." Without thinking, Oscar quickly replied, "Well, they did. I left it right here in the middle of the floor before you called me to breakfast. I told you I wasn't hungry." Okay, before we turn the page, I'm going to quickly tell you a few things. We're going to go over a couple of things. First of all, what do you always begin a sentence with? A capital letter, just like this, a capital W there. What do you always end a sentence with? Some type of punctuation, period, question mark, or an exclamation mark, or an exclamation point, whatever you want to call it. If you end it with a period, that's just you're stating something. I left it right here in the middle of the floor before you called me to breakfast. If you end it with an exclamation mark, then you're kind of yelling something, you're emphasizing it. I told you I wasn't hungry. So you say it with a lot of emphasis. If you end it with a question mark, you're asking a question that can be answered. Are you sure? You can answer that, yes or no. So you begin sentences with a capital letter, you end them with some type of exclamation, with some type of punctuation, and sometimes the punctuation mark can tell you how to read the sentence. If this was ended with just a period, this is getting big. I knew I would do that. If this one right here is ending in just a period, say it was an exclamation mark, it would say, I told you I wasn't hungry. But it's ending with an exclamation mark. So that way you know to kind of emphasize it. I told you I wasn't hungry. Also, one other thing before we turn the page. If there is a name, you always capitalize the first letter of a name. Oscar has a capital O. Timmy has a capital T. Your name has a capital letter when you write it. So now let's see how this turns out with Oscar yelling at his mom. I'm not sure this is going to turn out great for him. Before Oscar could get the last word out, he knew he was in trouble. He was never supposed to shout at his parents. Unfortunately, Oscar had to pay the price for his bad temper, so he spent the next 5 minutes in the thinking chair thinking about his choices. After the 5 minutes was up, Oscar apologized to his mom for shouting at her and then continued looking for his car. He began tearing through his toy box, pulling the cushions off the couch, even looking through Timmy's things. Now, do you think Timmy here would have somehow gotten Oscar's red car? I don't think so. I don't think Timmy could get out of his crib to go get it. He then ran into the bathroom and poured all his bath toys into the tub, but still no favorite red car. Frustrated, he stormed into the kitchen and began looking through all the cabinets. Hearing the loud clanging and banging of the pots and pans, Oscar's mom ran to the kitchen with a half-dressed baby brother in her arms, but stopped in her tracks when she saw how messy the house was. So, can you think of a better way Oscar could have handled this? Instead of shouting at his mom in the very beginning of the book, he could have stopped and he could have thought about his choices. Shout at her or figure something else out. Talk nicely to her. Don't know about this. What have you done to the house? Gasped Mom. I'm just looking for my favorite red car, sighed Oscar. But look what you've done to the house in the meantime, said Mom. I know, Oscar quietly replied. I just really, really, really want to find my car. After taking a deep breath and counting to 5, Oscar's mom knelt beside him and offered a suggestion for finding his car. Why don't you retrace your steps from when you last remember having your car? Okay, so friends, his mom is doing what he should have done at the beginning of the book. She's stopping and thinking about her actions before she automatically starts doing what she probably wanted to do. When Oscar's mom came into the room and saw her kitchen in complete disarray with a mess everywhere, with Oscar's face looking like this, toys in the kitchen, I bet her immediate reaction that she wanted to do was to yell at him. But instead of yelling, she took a deep breath. She counted to 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She got a little self-control. That means she's controlling what she is going to do with herself. And then she offered up a suggestion to Oscar. She's asking him to retrace his steps. Everybody needs to stop and think before you get upset and before you immediately start reacting. If you stop and think, then things might turn out a whole lot differently than if you just start yelling. And I think Oscar may find that out. Retrace my steps? Asked Oscar. Yes, said Mom. When did you last have your car? Right before you called me to breakfast, said Oscar. Did you take it to the table with you? Asked Mom. No, I know that you don't like me playing with toys at the table, said Oscar. So see, they're retracing their steps. They're going back and figuring out everything they did prior to Oscar being in this position right now with a messed up house and a messed up face and a lost car and a mom who's mad at him. Well, I also don't like you leaving them in the middle of the floor, said Mom. But anyway, what did you do next? I remember thinking that I needed to put it in a safe place so that I could start playing with it again right after I finished eating breakfast. Maybe I didn't leave it on the floor. So now that he's having a chance to stop and think, he's realizing that maybe he didn't leave it in the middle of the floor like he thought he did at the beginning of the book when he was just mad and he had no self-control and he just started yelling. Let's see. Oscar thought for another minute, and then, with a very embarrassed look on his face, he remembered what he had done with his favorite red car. He slowly reached his hand into his back pants pocket and pulled out a perfectly shiny favorite red car. Okay, guys, have you by chance been seeing this car in his back pocket the whole time? Let's come back here and see. Look at here. There's something there in his back pocket. Did you see that when we were on this page? Same thing with these two pages. You see that red thing in his back pocket? Ah, so we had clues to where his red car was, didn't we? Jumping up and down with excitement, Oscar barely noticed his mom standing in front of him with her hand held out. What can I do for you, Mom? Well, for starters, you can give me your favorite red car. I'll hold it for you so you don't lose it again, said Mom. Oh, I won't lose it again, said Oscar. I promise to keep a close eye on it this time. Well, that sounds just peachy, said Mom. You can keep a close eye on it right here on this shelf while you clean up this huge mess you made in the house. Yeah, I kind of expected that. And Oscar did just that while he spent the next hour cleaning the house. So let me ask you something, friends. What do you think Oscar could have done so that he didn't have to spend a whole hour cleaning the house and he didn't have to get into an argument with his mom? What do you think he could have done at the very beginning of the book? He could have done just what we were talking about. He could have stopped and thought about his choices. He could have had a little self-control. Controlling what yourself does. Everybody can do that. You can make a choice. You can stop and think, just like his mom did, how she took a deep breath before she decided to yell at him. She took a deep breath. She counted to 5. There are all kinds of things you can do before you just start reacting. And it doesn't have to be when you just lose something. It can be when you're in an argument with a brother or sister or with someone at school. Rather than just yelling at them, why don't you stop and think about the choice you're going to make? You can look at that other person and you can say, hey, let's figure this out on our own. Or if something in class goes wrong, rather than just running straight up to your teacher and tattletelling on somebody or telling your teacher you can't do something or you can't find something, why don't you stop and sit there for a minute and think about what you can do to fix the problem yourself? Chances are you can come up with your own solution and figure out your own problem. That's what growing up is. So I challenge you today and for the rest of this week, if you get into a situation where you get really upset and you want to scream and you want to yell and you want to just immediately go tattletale or go just be upset, stop and think about what you can do to fix the problem yourself. I think that will make everybody in life a lot happier. I know that your parents and your teachers will be really proud of you if you can do that. You'll be happier because you didn't get into an argument and you figured it out on your own. You'll be proud of yourself. So I thank you for tuning in and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Remember my challenge. Bye-bye.